Okay. Great, good stuff. Hello everyone and welcome to Kent Digital Meetup Ashford branch. We still say it's the Ashford branch even though I could be anywhere, and as we established, I'm actually in the United States of America, secretly running the country. My name's Anwen Taylor. I'm co-founder of 6.2. We're a web design and development business, and we run the Ashford Kent Digital Meetup because we think Kent's an amazing place for digital companies, and we wanted to create a space where people who are in digital or who are interested in digital can come along, learn some stuff, meet other people, have a generally good time. And back in the good old days of 3D, we were actually allowed to meet up in person and drink beer. So that is that. So I'm actually going to keep to time today because that is my greatest weakness. And then, as I'm sure Ray will tell you, and we don't want this dragging on until midnight. But we have got two incredible speakers today that I have the pleasure of actually knowing in real life. So kicking off events for tonight, and now Megan, tell me if I get the order wrong. Our first talk is from Anwen Cooper she's the founder and managing director of Get Fruitful Marketing. Her talk is going to be on creative and digital transformation through the COVID catalyst. So she's going to be covering why it's more crucial than ever to be taking a strategic approach to marketing. And then our second talk of the night is coming from the mighty Dan Knowlton of Knowlton Marketing, of Dan Knowlton. We all know it's really Dan Knowlton Marketing, isn't it? And his talk is going to be on advertainment. Imagine enjoying being sold to. So he's going to be talking about the creative approach that Knowlton uses to manage social media marketing that delivers 5 to 16 times return on ad spend. So there is a lot of learning and a lot of a lot of knowledge that is going to be passed around the room today. You are going to get learned, people. Before we hand over to Anwen, I'm going to show the slides because I sometimes do not show the slides. Hi Sue, thanks for joining. I'm going to share that and do that. Can we all see the slides? Fantastic, these are the slides. Thank you very much, Megan. So 6:30, we've done that. We're there, people, well done. 6:45, we've got Anwen's talk. Then we're going to have a little bit of a break. Then we're going to have Dan's talk, and then we're going to do a joint Q&A. So any questions that you've got along the way, write them down. We'll do a joint Q&A with both speakers about 20 to 8. And then after that, we have this kind of like extended kind of goodbye, pardon, it's such sweet sorrow. I don't even know if that was a song. I think that was, I don't know why I sang that. Anyway, and continued discussion. So that's the agenda. And I'm gonna hand over to Anwen, but yeah, I'll say a few words first about Anwen, because there are a lot of people in marketing that I would put on the kind of creative side of things. And they specialize in this kind of like marketing creative side. And that's fantastic. But what you'll always find in a small marketing agency or a marketing business is that creative also needs to be driven by the numbers. It needs to be driven by the strategy, and it needs to be driven by the analysis of the performance. And that's what like Anwen excels at, is that strategy and the analysis and the kind of the framework that will drive your marketing activities. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. because it's a different side to marketing that you don't always get people kind of stressing the importance of. So with that said, and without further ado, I'm going to stop my share and hand over to you, Anwen.
Thank you, Aaron, for that lovely introduction, and thank you all for coming tonight. Really excited to talk to you more later. I've done quite a lot of these Zoom presentations over the last few months, so what I'm going to suggest I found has worked really well is, because we are a fairly sizable group, although I really like interaction, a two-way discussion, I'm going to recommend that you keep yourselves on mute just so that everyone can hear me clearly. And if you want to type in the chat, feel free, if you've got comments, to chip in. But if you have any questions, as Aaron suggested, save those to the end after Dan's talk, and we'll do our joint Q&A and we can talk a bit more then. And I'm going to do a slide share in just a moment. I will get that up to show you. But while I'm doing that, perhaps I just don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that Sue Ferguson just joined as Aaron was doing that. Do you want to just say hello quickly and tell us who you are while I set my slides up? You might just need to unmute.
Yeah, quite.
There you go.
Happened to see this group actually on Twitter. I was going through my list, and I just thought, right, I'm going to come along and see and see how see what it's all about. Do you want me to say I'm in Tenterden? I don't know if anybody recognises Tenterden High Street behind me.
Yeah.
I'm not actually in the High Street at the minute, and it certainly isn't light like that here. But I don't know anything about the group. I'm just excited by anything digital. I run a Tenterden website, and I have large social media following. I like working with graphics, and I pretty much, it's not my day job. My day job actually is I'm a podiatrist. So there's a bit of crossover there, isn't there, or not? Probably not. So I don't know. I don't know anything about this group. It just I just love techie stuff.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you. So I am definitely not a techie. I think that all of you are probably 100 times more qualified in that department than I am. But I would call myself a marketing generalist. So I have been working in marketing for about 20 years since I left school, like through university, and in my gap year I started working, and I've always been sort of working in marketing related jobs. So I have kind of been there and done everything from stuffing envelopes to writing copy, handing out flyers in the street, and the really unglamorous kind of basic entry-level marketing tasks that you get to do, to what I do now, which is more on the strategic side and sort of having that overview. So yeah, I work with lots of technical people and creative people, but I don't profess to be particularly creative or technical myself. That is not my thing. So yeah, as Erin said, today I'm hoping to bring a sort of strategic point of view, and to open your mind to my way of thinking, which might be a bit different from the way that you think day to day normally. And I've called this presentation Creative and Digital Transformation Through the COVID Catalyst. I'll explain in a moment what I mean by that. And the subtitle is More Mindful Marketing Strategies for the New Now and Beyond. And I will explain a bit more about what that means in a moment too. But really, yeah, what I'm trying to do is just bring a sort of strategic approach for you to consider bringing through to your work. And I'm aware that we've got a real mixture of people on the call today. So there's some of you who are business owners yourselves, some people in an agency environment, some people in an in-house sort of marketing or digital role, and others of you are sort of solo independent consultants. So I think there's kind of three different groups of us here in the room. And I hope what I share today will be useful for all of you, no matter what sort of role that you're in. But I imagine that the way that you filter this information and take it on will be slightly different for each of you, because some of you will have clients and you can kind of ripple this through to the work that you do with your clients. For those of you who are business owners or self-employed, you can also think about how you apply it to your own business. And for those of you who are in-house, you can think about how it relates to the business that you work in. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to myself. Obviously, I've told you who I am very briefly, but I'll just give you a bit more background. So try and click onto the next slide. So that's what I'm going to talk about as well. So I'll do a quick introduction, then I'm going to talk about these terms that I've got in the title. You know, what is the COVID catalyst? This is something that I've just come up with. What is the new now? What does that mean? And what is mindful marketing? And then I'm going to talk about what matters most right now and this big shift that I can see is happening in the world of business. And then I want to invite all of you to step up as leaders to help create a better world. So that's kind of my big call to action, my big mission. I really want to inspire you all to do more and be more within whatever field you work and whatever your role is. So I want there to be some kind of practical steps that you take forward beyond just feeling inspired and thinking and reflecting. So a quick bit about me and my business. So I set up Get Fruitful Marketing back in 2014, based in Maidstone in Kent. And I run as a limited company. And I created a sort of framework or process and methodology, which I call the Get Fruitful Marketing methodology, which is basically a strategic process that I take people through to put a marketing strategy together for their business. And I deliver that through an online business accelerator program, which is for people who are working on their own as sole traders or running small businesses. And I also work one-to-one with more established and larger businesses, kind of like an outsourced marketing director, I guess. And once I've done the strategy work with people, I can also help with implementing campaigns and offer support with all aspects of marketing. And I'm not an agency, so I don't have a big team behind me, but I do that through a network of other freelancers and small businesses that I have got to know over the last 5 or 6 years. And they help me with all aspects of marketing that I'm not technically able to do myself, or I don't have time to do myself. And I've worked with a real range of different types of businesses over the last few years. My background originally when I was in employment, into employed roles, was working in London. I worked in the arts and culture sector, and I was selling tickets for theatre shows a lot of the time, working at London theatres, marketing their performances and marketing the venues as spaces for events to be hired out. Also a lot of community and education work that was run by those organisations. And when I've been running my own business, I've been working more in the B2B kind of service sector. So working a lot with people doing professional services like legal, accounting, financial advisors, other creative and marketing businesses as well. And yeah, worked with over 50 different businesses since I've set up the business, mostly based in Kent, but I've had a few clients further afield in London, Bristol, Cambridge, and I've also got a couple of clients at the moment who work internationally as well, which is exciting. And as well as my one-to-one consulting, I said I meant run this business accelerator program, which is more for the small businesses and the startups and sole trader type enterprises who perhaps wouldn't have budget to work with me as a consultant one-to-one. So that's a program that I've developed that I run online, and yeah, just allows me to bring my experience to help the smaller businesses in a more accessible way. And I speak to lots of groups like this a lot on this sort of subject of marketing and strategy. And I've also written a book which is called Get Fruitful, the Playbook, which is where I outline my methodology. And it's also the workbook for the accelerator program that I run. So talking about what we're meant to be here for, navigating the new now and the COVID catalyst with more mindful marketing strategies. So these are some phrases that I've just started using recently. I really don't like the new normal. I don't know how you all feel about the new normal, but I think a lot of people are just sick of hearing about it. A lot of people just don't like the idea that this is normal. It's not normal, really. or the fact that it's going to be like this forever just doesn't sit well with me. So I've just been calling it the new now. It's just how things are at the moment. Things keep evolving and changing, and it's not going to be like this forever. So yeah, hopefully you can take hope from that. But I think we just have to be mindful of the fact that it is a very dynamic situation that we're in. Lots of changes have been going on over the last few months, and that's going to continue to happen as we all adapt, as things hopefully improve. The COVID catalyst is a term that I've started using to describe what I think is happening in terms of how we as people, as behavior, kind of in terms of consumer behavior and as a society, how things are shifting. I think a lot of people feel that the new normal or the new now is completely different to how things used to be. But I personally think that actually it's just accelerating a lot of trends that were already in motion. And it's just encouraging us to take a step forward in lots of respects. Unfortunately, a lot of things have also been pushed back. But I think generally the overall trend is that things that were already happening are kind of speeding up. For example, working from home, remote working, using technology like Zoom to connect with each other. You know, people are just having to adopt that way of working more and more because we're kind of being forced into that. And yeah, I think that applies to lots of other things as well. And then what I mean by mindful marketing strategies is really just opening your mind up beyond the kind of very sales focused, short term, we've got to hit these targets, we've got to make this much money, you know, this is our campaign objective. And it's very short term focused, it's very narrowly focused on whatever is the priority for your business. I think when we're mindful, it's about bringing our awareness, opening and higher levels than just our day-to-day kind of what's happening next, what am I having for dinner tomorrow, what have I got to do this week on my to-do list, am I going to hit my quarterly target? You know, it's kind of taking us away from that narrow focus on the day-to-day short-term things that are important to us, and hopefully elevating our thinking and expanding our thinking so that we're actually considering more what's going on in the world around us. So thinking about our customers, thinking about people in our teams, in our wider community, and even further beyond, kind of nationally and internationally, and just being aware of how interconnected we all are, how people are feeling, what people are thinking, and yeah, just making sure that when we are doing our day-to-day marketing and selling and sort of technical things, that we have that greater awareness in terms of what we're doing. So I want to just expand on that a little bit more. So what I perceive as what are these trends that are accelerating in the COVID catalyst? What does this new now look like? And some examples of mindful marketing that I think are out there in the world. I'm going to share some lessons from people that I think are big thinkers. You may already be familiar with them. So please type in the chat if you've heard some of this stuff before. The first person I'm going to talk about is this guy. Who knows who he is? Just type his name if you know who that is. And then I have to remember how to open the chat box because I'm in a different view from everyone else. There we go. Does anyone know who he is? Maybe not. He is Mark Ritson. So Mark Ritson writes for Marketing Week magazine. They also have an online magazine. He's a marketing professor and definitely a big thinker on marketing subjects. And I highly recommend, if you don't know him already, that you check out his column in Marketing Week. He writes regularly for them. You can follow him on Twitter. He's quite active and has done lots of talks on YouTube as well. And I'm always interested to see what he has to say. So he wrote a post some time ago, back at the beginning of the pandemic, about the new normal is just another bullshit line marketers have swallowed, which I really liked. He's also not a fan of this term. Then he wrote another one about TikTok being nothing new. To marketers, it's just another ad platform. I think we all know that. But people get really excited about these new technologies and they're like, oh, it's going to change the world, everything's going to be different. And, you know, some of us who've been there and seen it all before just go, yeah, whatever. We can adapt, and yes, some things will change, but actually at the end of the day, it's just another platform for us to sell if we want to sell, or to engage and have fun if that's what we want to do. And then he also wrote another article which I really liked about bothism, which is a term he came up with. And this article is all about how in the marketing world, we're always saying, you know, there's this new thing, we need to choose between this thing and this thing. And I think over the last few years, we've seen that a lot with digital marketing coming to the fore, and more people kind of specializing in digital services. So we've got lots of digital experts and digital agencies who, you know, maybe kind of position themselves as an alternative to some of the more offline and traditional methods of marketing, like direct mail, exhibitions and face-to-face stuff. And I think he was just trying to say in that article that actually it's not an either or, not just on the digital offline thing, but in lots of different respects within marketing. We often have tensions between different ways of doing things, and actually it's not about either or, choosing one or the other. It's actually about having a balance, and different ways of marketing are equally important. So I think the lesson I take from Mark Ritson is a sort of yes and, which can be interpreted in two ways. It could be kind of like, well, yes and, so what? We've seen it all before with the TikTok, with the new normal, so what? We just kind of carry on and do what we have to do. But also a kind of yes and with the bothism thing. It's not an either or, it's a yes and. We kind of need to think holistically with our marketing. The next big thinker I want you to think about is this lady. Does anyone know who that is? Type in the chat if you recognize her. She's quite distinctive looking, so I'm sure some of you will know her face. Yeah, thank you, Sue. That's Mary Portas. And for those who don't know, she is a bit of a retail guru. She did a series on TV called Mary Queen of Shops that some of you might have seen. She's done some consulting for the government on how to revitalize our high streets. And she also has a marketing agency herself, which specializes in consulting to retail. And I just think she's a really big thinker. I like following her thoughts. And through her agency, which is called Portas, you can sign up for the kindness economy, which is a report that they've just published in the last week or so. And she's been talking about this concept of the kindness economy for a few months now. It started off before the pandemic, but she really feels that the COVID catalyst is kind of kicking in and really bringing this to the fore now. We're seeing lots of businesses doing lovely work in their communities, helping to give back in different ways. You know, we've had examples of people giving discounts or freebies to people who are key workers. People in need, kind of reaching out to support people in different ways. And she just thinks that that's more and more going to become important part of business. And linking back to the idea of mindful marketing strategies, that we all just need to be thinking about how we can be kinder to each other, and in terms of our colleagues, the people that we work with, but also our clients, customers, and our wider communities. If you go to her website and sign up for her newsletter, she does a really interesting newsletter with lots of examples, particularly from retail, about how the kindness economy is being brought to life in different businesses. This photo here is an impact receipt from the shop Arket. I don't know if anyone knows Arket, but they're a clothing brand. And if you buy this t-shirt, that is the impact receipt that you will get when you purchase it. So in addition to your financial receipt, which tells you how much money you've paid for the garment, you will also get this impact receipt, which details all of the things that have gone into manufacturing that garment in terms of environmental impact and impact on people who've been involved in creating it. So it looks at things like how the fibers were manufactured, the labor that went into it, the dyes, you know, whether they were environmentally friendly, how it was shipped to you, etc., etc. So it gets you to think about beyond the financial price that you pay at the till or online. It also gets you to think about the other costs that went into that garment in terms of impact on people and the planet. So I guess the big lesson from Mary Portas is about thinking empathetically and being kind in the way that we are running our businesses and talking to people and marketing, and the bigger impact that we're having. And then the third big thinker that I want to bring some lessons from is this guy. I'm sure loads of you know who he is. Type in the chat if you know his name. Dun, dun, dun. Does anyone know? Yep, Simon Sinek. Thank you, Aaron. So he is an author, has written lots of books. Many of you might know this one, Start With Why, which is really a leadership book. The subtitle is How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. But I think it's a really great book for marketers as well, because it's all about the fact that you need a really clear mission, really clear purpose and vision to carry through into all of your messaging and everything that you do. And that's what attracts people to want to work with you. And then more recently, he's written this book called The Infinite Game, which came out a few months ago. And the subtitle of that one is How Great Businesses Achieve Long-Lasting Success. And it's a really interesting read. It's about how we need to shift our business thinking from this very short-termist view of have I made enough money this month? You know, am I on target for this quarter? And maybe at a stretch thinking sort of 1 to 3, maybe 5 years ahead, and getting people to think really long-term about our long-term impact, again, on people, on planet, and the legacy that we'll leave through our businesses once we have gone, once we're no longer here, or once we've sold up or exited our business and retired. So what I take from him is that we will really need to be clear on our purpose and our legacy, and that is really important. So to sum up, I think that there's been this big shift in business over the last few years, and it's something that's still going on. Some people are still a bit in the old world with the old rules. Others of us are leading the way and seeing the future, and we're a bit more in the new now and beyond. And I think, yeah, we're seeing a shift away from, in the old rules, it's all about money, how much money we're making. And I think now there's more of a talk about people, planet, and the profit as being equal in value and importance. And you might have heard this buzzword, the triple bottom line, is kind of a way of accounting for those three things beyond just doing your normal accounts for the financial side. I think we're also increasingly seeing a shift away from people working to live to people wanting more job satisfaction and meaning in their work, people wanting to stop working all the hours that there are and have more of a work-life balance, people stopping thinking just what's in it for me and thinking about how their business can be more of a force for good and wanting more purpose, and people just thinking day to day that this is my business, this is what I do, I get up and do my job, to actually having bigger ambitions and thinking how can we change the world and have a bigger impact. Moving away from thinking about who just gives me the fastest service or the cheapest price, and thinking what other value can be added here and how can we give more as well as just getting. And I think there's a lot more focus now on values being important, and not just think about who's the nearest business to me, but actually who's the best match for my values. And also a shift away from just being a certain person at work or kind of in our businesses, and being somebody else when you switch off in the evenings and at weekends. And that's about being authentic in who we are. And I think people increasingly don't like working with faceless corporations. They want to know what's going on behind the scenes. That kind of impact receipt that Mary Porter shared is a really good example of that. We don't want to just buy our t-shirts and hope that they look nice and that they're good value in terms of financial costs, but we also want to know that they were created by companies that care, and that the staff were treated well, and that the planet has been respected in the process as well. So there's a lot more need for transparency. And finally, I think obviously we've always had global businesses, but increasingly people who have maybe thought of themselves as a local or a national business are able to reach more around the world to a wider audience. So generally, I think there's a move towards opening our minds to new ways of doing business, and expanding the value that we give and the impact that we can have on a wider range of people. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this. Has anyone seen this before? Just type a yes or a no in the chat. It's called the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them. And this came out of the UN about 5 years ago. And all the member states of the UN signed up to these. They're basically all the big challenges that the planet is facing right now, all the things that are wrong and how to solve them. And these are kind of the solutions. And the UN says that basically we all need to work together to make the world a better place and to solve these big problems. Some of them relate more to business, or quite clearly. Some of them are more about people and society, and some of them are more about the planet and the environment. And it might be that there's some that really resonate with you and your work, some that maybe are like a personal passion for you. And yeah, just to encourage you, if you haven't come across this before, to check it out. If you just search for it online, you'll find more information on the UN about how you can take practical actions to work towards these goals. So these are the ones that I care about particularly. I've recently signed up to something called B1G1, which is called business, buy one, get one, business for good. And it's a really cool social enterprise that enables small businesses to increase their impact through matchmaking with charities around the world. So you can pick a charitable cause that you think aligns with your brand. And then every time you do something in your business, you can make a pledge to give money to the cause. So you might be familiar with Tom's Shoes, the shoe brand. Every time you buy a pair of Tom's shoes, they give a pair to somebody in need. It's kind of that model. So you can do that for your business, basically, in a really simple way. So there's a few things that I've picked recently to give back to. I run a business book group. Every time somebody attends that, we give a year's worth of access to library books to a child in Mumbai through a school library program. I recently did a virtual lunch meeting for some business leaders. And for each of the people who attended, I gave a school meal to a child in Cambodia. And for my online business accelerator program, every time somebody joins that, I give a fruit tree to a family in Kenya so that they can sell the fruit and make money. And this is another cause that we supported with another event that I did recently. So yeah, I guess what I'm just trying to say is that I'm encouraging you to think about what's really important right now, beyond just paying your bills, staying afloat, keeping your business going, doing work that you enjoy, and all of that stuff that we obviously need to do because it's really important in the short term, and encouraging you to think a bit more expansively and connect to some of the bigger issues that are facing us as a planet and within our communities. So I'm just going to start to wrap up now because I know that my time slot is coming to an end. So I think to do that, we need to ask ourselves 5 big questions. And these are the strategic questions that guide me in the work that I do with clients one-to-one and also in the group that I run. So the first question is, why are you in business? So going back to the Simon Sinek, start with why. This is really important to nail this, to understand what is that big impact that you want to have? What is that legacy that you want to create? You know, what is it that you're passionate about? What is your purpose? The second question is, who are you here to serve? Who are your ideal clients? Who do you want to work with? Who are the people that you love working with? Who are the people that you don't love working with and want to avoid? And just being really clear on how to connect with them, how to serve them well, how to reach them, how to communicate with them. The third question is getting clear on what is the unique value that you bring. What are the results that you deliver for people? What are people really buying from you? And what makes you different? What makes you stand out? The fourth question is, how is it best for you to get your message out into the world? How can we tell really compelling stories? How can we communicate with people in ways that really resonate and are relevant to them, that makes them sit up and pay attention, take notice of what you've got to say, and make them want to work with you if they're a good fit? And the final 5th question is, when are you going to make it happen? So what's your action plan? What are the next steps you're going to take? putting things in a schedule or a diary, mapping it out, having your big marketing plan for the year, big strategy and beyond the next year. I haven't got time to do this today, but I'm just going to leave this as a quick thought for you to go away and ponder on your own. When I work with people, I do a whole half-day exercise on this. So it's something that needs a bit of time to really consider, but I like to talk about the ripple effect. So even though you might be working on your own as an independent consultant or in a small business, we all have power to lead in our field and to have a massive kind of ripple effect beyond ourselves. So for that big kind of why question about why you're here, what's the impact that you want to have, what's your purpose, you can ask yourself, first of all, what are you trying to create for yourself? Think about you and perhaps those closest to you, if you have a partner in your life or family. You could just think about what is it that you're trying to create for yourself and those closest to you. And that might be work-life balance. It might be a financial thing that you need to earn a set of money to pay your bills and to save towards something that's a big goal for you. You can think about what is it that you're trying to create for your team and the people that work with you. So if you've got employees, that will obviously be your staff. But if you're working independently, that could be other associates that you maybe work alongside. It could be people that you outsource or subcontract work to, or just peers in your network that support you in different ways. And then you can ripple out and think about your clients. What's the impact that you want to have for your clients? What's the end result that you want to generate for them? And then you can think about your local community. So Sue, you're obviously very switched on to Tenterden there, and what's going on in your local community. But we can all think about the people in our local community, and that could be people in our neighbourhood, on our doorstep, who maybe live or work near to us physically, geographically, or it could be online communities. It could be industry networks that you're part of, or potential other groups that you're part of. And then the last two layers, you can think globally. So I gave you that example of B1G1 and how, you know, we can all give to causes around the world. We can also think about supply chains, like we saw with the Arquette receipt. We can think about people who are working in other countries. So even though you might be based here in Kent and not thinking at that level, I encourage you to think bigger and find the ways in which you could connect to people further afield. And finally, your legacy. So that can be thinking ahead into the future beyond the here and now when you're running your business or working in the job that you're in. And what's the ultimate legacy that you want to leave? So we will do questions and challenges after Dan's talk, but I invite you to note down anything that's come to mind while I've been talking, so you remember what you want to ask me. And I'd love you to take some action as a result of what I've been saying today. If you commit to taking action by putting it in your diary or writing it down, you're much more likely to do it, as I love these statistics. So particularly, and also if you share it publicly, so if you type it in the chat what you're going to go away and do, or if you tell me later, you're much more likely to go away and do it. I'll circulate the slides via Aaron afterwards, but I've included these links to the Mary Porter's TED Talk on the kindness economy, and her website with the newsletter that you can sign up for, and the report that she's written, and the Simon Sinek stuff, and all the B1G1 stuff. If anyone wants to join B1G1, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm not on commission because they're a social enterprise. They don't pay me, but if anyone does join with my referral code, they give more to charities. And this month they're giving warm clothes to children in the Ukraine to protect them from the winter, which is obviously fantastic. And if anyone wants to know more about my online program for business acceleration, let me know, and feel free to contact me after today if you want to get in touch. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. I've got a website, I've got a Facebook group, and I have a free 5-minute Fruitful marketing health check, which you can take if you want to test how fruitful your marketing is. So that's me. Sorry, I've run over slightly. But I'd love to hear if you take away one thing from what I've said, something you want to do or research or think about. or your big mission, your big why. I'd love to hear. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Anwen. I'm just going to spotlight you. Everyone can go back to gallery view if they want. That's up in the top right-hand corner. Yeah, that's that. Thanks, Anwen. That's like, I love that you always bring this kind of that kind of big picture thinking down to that kind of strategic level. You know, Simon Sinek says this, but what can you do with that? That's really insightful. I'm going to propose a 5-minute break, if that's all right. Quick loose stop for everyone. We can, and then we'll come back at 27 minutes past, and be ready for Dan's talk.
Cool.
I'm going to do thumbs up and pause this, and off we go. Recording. I always feel like I should do like a TV anchor hook, like welcome back to Kent Digital Ashford. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hand over to our next speaker, who, if you've been on LinkedIn, I don't know, like ever, you might recognize his face. Or if you've been to, I don't know, any kind of marketing conferences, you might have seen him up on stage talking about digital marketing and video. Yeah, it's a real honor to have Dan here. He's a fantastic speaker, very knowledgeable, entertaining, and can I just say, devilishly good looking. So Dan, over to you.
What an intro. Thanks, Aaron. I'll try and live up to it. So let me just share my screen. Let me know when you can see that.
Anyone? Should I spotlight you?
Yeah, tell me if and when you. Yes, I've got thumbs up. Good. Okay, cool. So advertainment. Some of you are probably thinking, what on earth is advertainment? Is it a buzzword? Yes, it's basically a fancy way of combining two words, entertainment and advertising. And over the last 6 years of growing our agency, we've tried and tested a whole range of different marketing approaches, and advertainment is one type of content or marketing approach that we've had a lot of success with our own agency and our clients. So really, I want this session to be an opportunity to open the bonnet and try and provide you guys some value to share how we've had success with this, some case studies to share examples of that, and then also break down how you could be having success with this type of marketing as well. So before we start, I painstakingly looked back at some of the content we produced, or I produced, when we started 6 years ago, and just want to kind of set the scene that we all start somewhere. And looking back at some of the content I was producing, it wasn't great. It didn't generate a huge amount of engagement. You know, I was producing some pretty terribly designed. We used to be called KPS Digital Marketing, by the way. We rebranded to Knowlton last year. And yeah, in terms of our content strategy, it wasn't generating engagement. It wasn't working very well. I ridiculously thought that when there was a beached whale on our local beach, posting a video of that on our business YouTube channel was a good strategy. So just generally had a mishmash of lots of different strange types of content we were producing to help try and drive business for our agency. And it wasn't really working. But what was good that we did actually do was try and test loads of different things. And most of it didn't work. However, in 2017, we tried something a bit different. So we wanted to produce a testimonial style video, but you know, for our own experience, we knew that testimonial videos are fairly boring. You know, it's not that exciting to watch a company's customers say how brilliant they are. So we wanted to try something a bit different. So what we thought we'd do is we went out and shot videos of our customers saying nice things about us. But we also, my co-founder, who's my brother, and I, we dressed up as strange looking characters. This is one of them. And we pretended to be our own customers, and we commented as if we were our own customers on what it's like to work with us and how brilliant we are and how amazingly good looking we are, and just had a very kind of witty script to which we cut in between the actual footage of our customers saying nice things about us. And we posted this on Facebook, and this was like back in 2017. So it had 2,500 organic views, 57 comments, 47 reactions. And if you're not getting any feedback or any engagement at all really on what you're doing online, at the time, to us, this was basically viral. So we were like, wow, this is actually working. Like, we've done something. Not only did this at the time generate a significant amount of engagement, it helped us win business. So people actually got in touch with us and said, this is really creative. We want to work with you and see what you can do for us. And it actually directly helped us win business. And this was kind of our epiphany of like, wow, if we actually think a bit creatively and do something a bit outside the box, hate that term, but it can actually work. So from that kind of video, what we learned, the key kind of takeaway that we learned was actually focusing on producing content, whatever form you're producing content, that focuses on fulfilling the needs of the viewer or the consumer first before trying to sell to them. Because we really thought, rather than just thinking, how can we produce a testimonials video that really sells our business? We thought, how can we produce a testimonials video that firstly, people will enjoy watching and they'll be entertained and they'll enjoy watching it. And secondly, actually help sell our service and our business. So that's kind of one of the key takeaways from that early moment in our journey in 2017, that what we took away. Since then, we've continued to try and test the whole variation of different types of advertainment for our own business. If you look at my LinkedIn channel, LinkedIn profile, you'll see a whole range of different types of marketing sketches. TikTok was mentioned earlier. We've tapped into TikTok trends and turned them into a business type of concept. And these video concepts, these advertainment videos for our own agency, have generated tens of thousands of views, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of comments and reactions, and a lot of business. At the moment, like 80% of our business is coming through LinkedIn, through producing this kind of advertainment style content. And if you want to have a look at what that actually looks like, go and look at my LinkedIn profile and you'll really get an understanding of what it looks like. So that was great for us and for our agency. But once we started to have success with generating business for our own agency, we wanted to try and test this with our customers to see how it worked for our customers. So this was back in 2018. One of our first customers that we tried and tested advertainment with was Core the Gym in Maidstone. Don't know if any of you have heard of that gym. Really great guy down there, Jay. And he brought us in, he saw our creativity, and we produced a variety of parody-based, sketch-based gym bro style videos, basically poking fun at gym culture while subtly this was all shot in their gym, while subtly communicating the benefits of that gym. And we teamed this up with a paid social media ad campaign on a monthly basis. And it worked so well. It worked incredibly, incredibly well. In terms of generating trackable results, so we had, hundreds of comments on the variety of videos, tens of thousands of views, but we generated 16.1 times return on ad spend. So for every £1 we invested in ads, we generated £6.10 in trackable revenue that was attributed to membership sign-ups, over 500,000 15-plus-second video views, and it worked really well. Now, some of you may be thinking that this is quite a kind of sexy business, gyms. Of course, it's easy to produce fun, entertaining content that generates trackable revenue. And boring businesses can't do this. They can. Literally, here's an apple that we've done it with. This is a UK-based apple grower called Cameo apples. Apples are boring, right? They're not that exciting. They came to us with the objective. Yeah, it's funny when I talk about this because it's literally an apple, but we've done something really creative with this. So they came to us 2 years ago. This was actually a recommendation from another agency. This is why having agency partnerships is so good if you run a marketing agency. But this customer came to us with the objective. Their objective, interestingly, wasn't to drive like trackable revenue through their website, because they didn't have like an e-commerce site. Because they sell their apples in supermarkets, right? However, the problem they had was that supermarkets stock their apples as sweet, crisp apples, like generic apples. They're not branded. They're just called sweet, crisp apples. Whereas this brand of UK apple grower wanted to put pressure on supermarkets to stock them as a branded Cameo apple. So that was their challenge. Pretty big challenge to get supermarkets to stock their branded apple. They came to us with that objective, and we developed this whole strategy around producing really creative content that tapped into culturally relevant situations and pop culture, Like we created videos that integrated apples with Game of Thrones, with David Attenborough's Our Planet documentary on Netflix. If you ever saw that, that's a clip from there. We also did research and found out that their target customers are the types of people that watch Dancing on Ice. So we literally built a miniature set where we had apples. Has anyone seen Gogglebox? Nod if you've seen Gogglebox, yeah? We literally made it look like apples were commenting on Dancing on Ice. This sounds so weird saying it, but just look at their Facebook page and you'll see. And the whole idea was, their objective was to obviously get their branded apple stocked in as a Cameo apple in supermarkets, but we needed to drive a buzz and excitement with their customers. We needed to get in front of hundreds of thousands of customers. We wanted them to get the brand in front of them and get them commenting and talking about the brand. So through these videos, over the last 2 years, we've been producing videos from January to April, which is their main season. Yeah, not only have we generated 1.3 million 15+ second video views, etc., and tens of thousands of customers engaging. At the start of this year, Lidl actually has which is coming out in February, has agreed to stock their branded Cameo apples, which was like a huge success. We will all had like a bit of a, bit of a party when it all happened, but yeah, it worked. And they're a boring product. So if you think we can't be entertaining, we can't be fun, we can't be creative, then you can. We've done it with an apple. Literally an apple. A bit more exciting, this was really the next step up for us. Back in 2019, we started working with Wahl. Has anyone heard of Wahl? Give us a nod or a head shake. No, yeah, no. It's actually a 100-year-old personal care brand. So if you ever go to a barber's or a hairdresser's, which you probably have, you'll see that all of them use Wahl products. It's like in the professional industry, the clippers and stuff, it's the brand that everyone uses. Also, they've got like a consumer range of products. In 2019, they approached us to develop content and a paid ad campaign to promote their Aquablade, which is their flagship product. It's like a male grooming product, lots of fancy heads. I've actually got one somewhere in here. I don't know, in the background somewhere, there's one up. We produced the video you'll see there. It was like a video with a typical bloke in his man cave, and he was talking through a number of different relatable situations that blokes would relate to, whilst also subtly selling the benefits of the Aquablade and overcoming objections. It's pinned to the top of their Facebook page if you want to have a look at it. And this was really how we took off as an agency. This is the first global brand we started applying this strategy with, and it generated, so that's a screenshot from one of the videos, but that's, yeah, a lot of video views. But really the main thing was 9.19 times trackable return on ad spend. And you can imagine how much a global brand like this is spending on ads. It generated a better return than the TV ad that they spent 780 grand on the year before. So it was like a huge moment for us. This video teamed up with a whole bunch of customer unboxing testimonial videos and a whole load of other creative content helped generate some really good results. So that was like our moment, like, we've proven this with a global brand, it actually works. Not only does it generate, this type of content generate trackable revenue, the real benefit of it, in addition to that, is positive sentiment towards the brand. So literally, if you look through the comments of these types of posts, we've got people commenting saying, this is the best ad I've ever seen. I can't believe I just watched a 6-minute ad, and tagged all their mates in it. It was like, there's lots of ads that drive revenue, but these ads drive revenue and people get excited to consume them. Just like, imagine like a Super Bowl ad or a Christmas ad, like the John Lewis ad, we all get excited to watch them. That's kind of what this is all about. And we even did a kind of video where Lloyd, my brother and co-founder, did a dramatic reading of the comments of these campaigns. And it's, yeah, but you can just see some of the kind of results there. So in terms of, rather than just talking about us and what we do, how can you get value from this basically? What makes this content a success and how can you emulate it? So I'm going to break this down into 2 sections. First of all, dissecting, why does this even work? Because you're probably watching this and maybe listening thinking, how on earth have they done that? Because this looks ridiculous, but it does work. So breaking down why this type of content works. 1, it's relevant and relatable to the key decision maker. So when a brand or company comes to us and says, we want to sell this thing to this type of person, we focus heavily on who is that decision maker that's going to buy the product. What do they care about? What do they talk about with their friends when they're picking their kid up from the school? What do they text with their mates in their WhatsApp lads group? Like, we truly do research to understand this person, to understand what they care about at that specific time. What TV programs do they talk about with their mates? And we work backwards to produce content that when it goes past them in their Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever newsfeed, they see it and think, I can relate to this. So for example, this Wahl Aquablade campaign, we were targeting traditional blokes. The whole script of this video was based around tapping into relatable situations we know traditional blokes will relate to. And if you have a watch, you'll really get that. So I guess one key takeaway is like, who are you trying to convince to do something, and truly understand who they are. Number two, it stands out and breaks the norm. If you're producing content that looks like everyone else in your industry, you're going to fail, or you're not going to be very successful. Because nowadays there's so much content out there that if you don't stand out, you're just part of the noise. So one example of how we do that with brands, the Apple company, keep mentioning the Apple company, like for example, David Attenborough's Our Planet documentary came out. We produced a skit where we hired a David Attenborough voiceover to comment over a number of scenes where we pretended an apple was a wild animal on a beach. This sounds so weird, but just watch it. Like, it really does stand out, and it works. And there's so many other examples I can share with you, but I won't bore you to death. 3, provide value and entertain before selling. If you're like me and hate being sold to, I don't think anyone really enjoys being sold to normally. Anything that's disruptive, anyone that's cold calling you, that's like, hey, buy my stuff, is annoying. This is just my opinion. You may think differently, but this is why we always lead with value. So when the first piece of content anyone ever sees, it needs to provide them value. What type of value is it providing them? For example, this type of advertainment, this one bucket of content, the value it's providing is it's entertaining. It's going to make you feel good. Laughing, having fun feels good. It could be educational content, you know. The value it's providing is it's teaching someone something. The first thing you need to think about is what value is it providing. And all the big marketers, Gary Vee, always talk about provide value, but genuinely, it's important to do that. Number 4, light bulb moments. So it's all good and well producing content that like makes people laugh, and you know, why don't we all just share cat videos, funny cat videos? That would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, people would probably engage with it, but it wouldn't actually sell your product or service. So one of the key things to include in your advertainment content is a light bulb moment, a moment where the person you're trying to convince to buy something is watching it and they go, that's how they can help me. That's a solution to a problem I've got. I'm going to become a customer, right? One example of how we do that, there's a few examples. So examples of how we've done it with brands, we talk about a real life case study that says, look at this person that looks like you, look at the problem they've got. You've got that problem, here's the solution. That's the kind of aha moment. Another one, in our marketing sketches, one of the sketches we did was called Marketing Channels in Real Life. I really recommend you watch it. It's one of my favorites. I'm really sad. I enjoyed shooting it. It's basically where my brother and I play different characters which are supposed to communicate different types of marketing. So SEO, mail marketing, cold calling. And these types of marketing are envisioned as a human being in a job interview, and they're trying to convince the interviewer why they're the best person for the job. And there's a creative sketch it goes through. One of the moments about 4 minutes in, one of the types of marketing is advertainment, and I'm playing that character as myself, as me, Dan, and I'm subtly selling one of our offerings, which is producing advertainment. And at one point in the skit, we're doing this stuff where it's all looking at each other. I look to the camera 4 minutes in and I say, like, you've literally been watching this video for 4 minutes and it's an advert for our company. Our marketing works, become a customer, and then just carry on. And the amount of messages, that was one of the videos that converted, I think we converted 5 or 6 new customers directly from people messaging on LinkedIn saying, I was literally watching that video and it was 4 minutes in and I loved it and it was an advert and I want you to do that for us. So having these light bulb moments, think of how you can cleverly get people not just like enjoying your content, but thinking that's a problem you can solve for me. Number 5, culturally relevant and timely. Oh, this is one I really enjoyed. So I told you with the Apple company, the weird Apple company, we tapped into culturally relevant pop culture things that people we knew in the target audience were talking about. One of them was Game of Thrones. Who loves Game of Thrones? Anyone? No? Yes? Yes. I watched it for the second time last month, which is sad. But yeah, Game of Thrones. So what we did was we did loads of random stuff. In this video, we had a guy on a horse dressed up as a knight with a sword, and it had a voiceover, and we basically positioned this guy as the biggest Game of Thrones fan. He was a Cameo Apple's employee that we said, and we said this guy is the biggest Game of Thrones fan. And in the video, there's a voiceover of him saying like, yeah, I'm such a big fan. I go to work on my horse and I bring the sword to work, and some people get weirded out, but anyway, it sounds really strange. Just watch it. And then we targeted this ad towards people in the target demo who we knew were interested in Game of Thrones. And yeah, like you can see, it got hundreds of comments, people saying, wow, this guy's such a Game of Thrones fan. I love it. But it was culturally relevant. So think about, what is your target decision maker talking about with their mates in the pub or in their WhatsApp group or in their lunches or in their tea breaks? You need to understand that so that you can create content that taps into that. Finally, clever nostalgic references. We all love nostalgia. We all love thinking back to the good old days, right? Like if you, my nostalgic era is the 90s. And if you spoke to me about Pokemon cards, PlayStation 1s, Nokia 3310s, Snake on Nokia 3310, I'd be like, I love you. And this, like, think of when you were a kid, when you see stuff related to when you're a kid, it's a nice feeling, right? So what we do is cleverly intertwine nostalgic elements into the content we produce that is tied in with the key decision maker we're trying to convince to do something. If we know you're like me, 28 years old, we know that when you were a kid, PlayStation 1s, Nokia 3310s, Pokemon cards, Pogs, all these things were like your thing. So if we cleverly put those things in content, when we look at a lot of the engagement on our client campaigns and our own videos, people are saying, oh my God, I remember knickknacks, like ribbon saucy knickknacks. Who likes ribbon saucy knickknacks? Anyone? Yeah. When I was a kid, these are still a thing now, obviously, but when I was a kid, these were like the absolute one. So it's another way of cleverly driving engagement, because people comment, which ultimately, when people comment on your content, it helps the butterfly effect of their audience seeing it and their audience seeing it and their audience seeing it. So think about like, what's the age of your decision maker that you're trying to convince to buy your stuff, and what do they remember when they were young, and intertwine that in your content somehow. How can you do this? So it's all good and well us looking at how we've done it, but that's not valuable to you because you need to get value out of this session. So how can you do it? I'm going to break this down into a few steps. 1, outline and research who you want to target. This is like marketing 101. Who's your target market? But I can't emphasize enough how important it is to truly understand who they are. Like I mentioned, what do they speak about with their mates in their WhatsApp group, when they're hanging out with their mum friends? And you're not just going to know this stuff. You need to do your research. So do focus groups, interview these people, interview current customers. One example, so for example, with the Wahl campaign, we've been doing all this consumer-based campaigns, which were working really well. They came to us and said, right, we want you to target barbers with our professional range. We have no idea how barbers speak, what barbers chat about with their friends, what they're interested in. So we interviewed barbers to figure out like, hey, barbers, when you're cutting people's hair, what funny stuff happens that only you chat about with your barber mates? What kind of language do you use? What kind of jargon do you use that we wouldn't know as non-barbers? And we really got to understand these barbers, and in all the copy, all of the creative, we tapped into that stuff. And yeah, it worked incredibly well. So you understand who the target market are, interview them, ask them questions. What funny stories do they have? And really start to understand them. 2, mind map ideas that trigger them. What I mean by that is, once you understand who these people are, you need to figure out what relatable situations they will relate to, because when you create content about things they relate to, then they're going to watch it. So what we do is get a flip chart, draw Steve, the 50-year-old golfer in the middle, whoever that is, and then mind map different situations that he will understand. And you'll get this information from your interviews that you do, from doing research. But like, oh, one thing he'll relate to, as an example, is, I'm making this up on the spot if you haven't haven't sort of got that yet, is when there's new people playing golf, they take ages to hit the ball off the tee, and it's really annoying, and we all laugh about it with our mates. Like, that's one thing. What's another relatable thing that only Steve, the 50-year-old golfer, will get? Something maybe more kind than that, but you know what I'm saying. So one more example of this. All of this I'm talking about, we use it for our own agency. If you look at our marketing sketches or our content about marketing, you'll see that we're tapping into relatable situations marketing people will get, like how annoying it is when someone connects on LinkedIn and tries to directly sell to you, or what other things have we done? How there's always like someone in the marketing team that's like a traditional old marketer that likes it the way it used to be done and doesn't like anything new. Like, there's all these sort of relatable things that people in marketing teams will get and they'll relate to, and then you can tap into it. That's how we've had a lot of success with applying this to our business. I know we're almost running out of time, so sorry, almost there. 3, pick an idea out of that mind map and create it. Stop overthinking it. You know, when we started, we didn't have all this great production gear, thousands of pounds worth of camera gear. We did some of it on phones. We didn't use great stuff. The concept is more important than the quality of the content in terms of like the lighting and that kind of thing. So just get out there and try something new. A really good place to start is like story-based platform, Instagram stories, LinkedIn stories. Twitter's just released Fleets, which is a similar thing where it's like very low quality production, but you can test your concepts, and yeah, it works really well. 4, publish and analyze the results. So start publishing stuff, see what sticks. 95% of it will fail, just like all the crap I used to post, until we had that one thing that worked, and then you can learn from that and repeat that process. Number 5, that's my fiance calling me because she wants me home for dinner. Number 5, learn and repeat. Learn from what's working and what isn't, and repeat. One note here, we always have this mantra of trying and testing. 20% of your time should be trying and testing different things. Can I just quickly tell you one story about some weird thing that worked for us recently? Is that all right? I won't take up too much of your time. We basically sent out 19 packages, which included wigs and weird stickers of us wearing wigs, to 19 people who commented on our wig videos. We looked at, on LinkedIn, we get hundreds of comments and stuff. We got one of our team to analyze who our ideal customers we want to work with that are already commenting on our content. We got their address and we sent them these wig packages with a handwritten note, and we've just converted a virtual strategy, and it's like the tiny cost it cost us to do it. It was 10 times return on investment. So try and test different things. It worked really well. Finally, this is the final slide, so I promise you I'm going to leave you alone in a minute. Here are just some of the things that we get a lot of inspiration from, and that I think some of them are our own, a lot of them are other people that will help you. The Friday Club. This is an email I send out every Friday with all of the best marketing related content, videos, apps, tools that we learn from in that week, books. I also give away prizes every week to people in the Friday Club, and also share an unfiltered insight into what it's like growing our agency, our biggest challenges, how we're overcoming them, all the weird shit that happens here, because lots of weird stuff does happen here. Marketingexamples.com is a great website for marketing case studies. There's some really good ones on there to learn from and get inspiration from. TikTok, this is Marketing with Sam. If any of you are on TikTok, or your daughters are, I think someone mentioned their kids are, maybe, yeah. So have a look on Marketing with Sam. She shares really great tools that she discovers. Chamber Media are an American-based production company that create really wicked advertainment videos. If you've ever seen like the Dollar Shave Club ad, they create really good ones of those. Matt Navarro, bottom left, is every week he sends an email with the latest social media platform updates on, and it's just incredibly detailed and really good. Steve Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO podcast this charts in the top 5 business podcasts every week, and it's a really raw insight into what it's like as a business owner to grow his business. And the Business Anchors podcast is basically every week, my brother and co-founder and I sit down, tell weird stories about our childhood of being brothers, but also there's value in there where we share insights about growing our agency. And that and the Friday Club are really unfiltered. So if you get offended easily, I probably wouldn't sign up or listen. But if you don't and you like a laugh at the weekend, we say that it's the only business podcast that you'll actually enjoy listening to at the weekend. And that's enough of me babbling on. Thank you. I hope you found that useful. That's it.
Outstanding. That was superb. I am going to, can I change the?
I'll stop sharing that now. There you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Thanks so much for that. There was a lot packed in there, and I hope that everyone had their notepads out. And I always love when people are like, look, we did this great thing, and here's exactly how you do it. Because like, when you when you look behind it, it's quite nice to see there's a lot of analysis and thinking. And I think that if you're not a marketer, you can kind of like look at that and go, oh wow, actually I don't just need to be this like crazy like genius creative to get results out of my marketing. I just need to be prepared to do something a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit less less kind of
normal,
usual. Yeah, less normal. I just need to be
strange.
Less normal. Yeah. Right. Let's jump into the old Q&A. We do have, and I know Anwen's looking with a keen eye and thinking, who is that new person? We do have Lee Batchelor, who's come to join us. But I think her internet is terrible, so she might not be able to actually respond to anything. First off, Dan, Anwen, Danwin. Sorry. Thank you so much for your time and for your talks. They were absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna kind of, I normally open the questioning, and I think what I'll ask to kind of both of you, armed with the kind of strategic mindset approach and some concrete examples of how you can go forward and start marketing your business. Let's think about someone who's maybe at the beginning of their journey, or is some way down their journey but hasn't really thought about the kind of outbound sort of marketing approaches. What would be your top tip for people to get started? Because I think a lot of people will look and go, well, yeah, that's great and that's fantastic, but I'm not this, I'm not that. Like, a lot of people create a lot of excuses. So what would be your top tip to kind of overcome that sort of that inertia or that fear, and either like sit down and sort of write a strategy, or kind of, you know, create an idea for you know, for a video or something like that and put it out there? Like, you know, what really gets people going?
Do you want to go first, Dan, or should I?
I don't mind. Do you want to go first?
Okay, well, I love that question because that's kind of what I do every day, asking that question. And I think, yeah, my answer is the 5 fruitful questions that I gave with one of my slides. So just being really clear on why you're in business as a starting point. I think quite often people go into business because they've got a passion for something, or they're really good at something. And then you can kind of lose sight of that passion because you've got the pressure of having to pay the bills. And so people end up taking on work that they don't enjoy, or that's not profitable, or just takes them in a different direction. And then sometimes you end up sort of regretting it, or not being happy. So just, I think, being really clear from the outset of what you want to achieve for yourself, and that kind of ripple effect thing of what you want to achieve for your clients, what kind of contribution you want to make on a bigger level from the start, just making that really clear, and just taking time to regularly come back and review that. And then there's other questions about who is it you want to serve, who are the people that you enjoy working with, what makes you different, what's the unique value that you bring, how can you get that message out into the world, and when are you going to make it happen? That's having an action plan. You kind of have to ask 5 questions. And constantly be reviewing them as well, because I think business just takes you off in different directions.
I think that's a really good point there. When you were kind of describing that, it made me think that by writing those things down and doing that sort of that introspection and having them kind of in front of you, that you get to a point where the passion kind of overcomes the you know, the passion and the purpose overcomes the kind of the thing that you have to do next, and you just do it because you stay focused on the goal. Dan, what about you?
The starting point we always work with brands is to develop their strategy. So it kind of ties into what Anwen was saying. Like, we probably got a slightly different approach, but similar kind of theory. But we, first of all, schedule a day of your time and block it out, and don't schedule anything over it. And I recommend getting out of environment and going somewhere and doing this. But looking at, our whole kind of process of developing a strategy is firstly understanding in detail who is it you're trying to convince to do something, like I kind of mentioned in the previous slides, truly understanding who that person is, what their interests are, and all of those details, and then doing research to work backwards and understand what problems do they have that you solve, where do they look for solutions to those problems, and start to work backwards and understand the decision-making process they go from to having a problem to deciding who's going to solve that problem. Once you start to understand that research process of looking at reviews online, asking friends for recommendations, posting online, looking at YouTube reviews, looking at companies' websites and case studies and testimonials. Once you start kind of dissect that decision-making process, then you can start to think, if they do, if they look at reviews on YouTube of this product, I need to be creating content that's reviewing the product. I need to be paying influencers or other people to be creating that content. If you know that they look at your website to find case studies and evidence of you delivering results, then you need to be thinking, I need to create case studies to demonstrate that. So looking at a decision-making process and coming up with a plan of, here are the steps that I need to take on my website to get it from A to B. Here are the steps I need to take on YouTube to develop these reviews. Here are the steps I need to take on networking and meeting people, And I wrote an article on socialmediaexaminer.com, which breaks down this whole process, which, I'll put in a link in the comments if anyone finds that handy.
Yeah, that's really quite insightful, the power of that sort of research piece, which is, I think, a bit that probably a lot of people, when they sort of first get into marketing, they forget about that research piece. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think although I said, you need to start off with the big thing in mind, like what you ultimately want to achieve, and think big. It's also really important to sort of think about what's the first step that you need to take, and not be sort of overwhelmed by the 5-year, 10-year vision. I think you're right. The first thing you need to do is research and get to know your market or ideal clients really well.
I think
understand them. I heard a really good phrase the other day, that you mustn't ever love your product or your service more than you love your customers.
I love that.
Because that is the ultimate kiss of death.
I think we all kid ourselves and just in our mind we say we know what our target market's like, we know what they're interested in, and we still do this now. We just think we know them, but until you actually speak to them and interview them and understand what they care about, you don't know until you've actually got the data to say this is what they care about. Yeah,
there's a phrase that comes from the army, because the strategy always comes from the military. Strategia is a Greek term that means a military plan, and it comes from the art of the general. And in the army, they say your plan always fails on first contact with the enemy. And that's the thing, it's really good having a plan and taking that time to strategize, but as soon as you test it and talk to people and try things out, things start to not work or not work out the way you thought they would. It's really important to talk to people. Don't be scared of them.
I'm going to open it up to the floor, to the digital floor. If anyone else has got any.
Actually ask that, because that's where I tend to get really stuck. I've been trying to think of who is my who. When it comes to digital content development, especially for e-learning, it's kind of a business to business sales thing. And I'm struggling to work out who I approach. If I was selling a razor blade, then barbers, perfect. I know where to go and find those. But I mean, you've got HR developers that want to take their training online, or you've got business owners that want to take their training online, or professional trainers that want to move to less face-to-face and more online. So how do you sort of focus in on what your audience might be? Any tips would be good.
Yeah, so I have an exercise for that. There's basically sort of 5 or 6 things that you need to consider, which can help you kind of assess people and prioritize them. So I'm trying to remember what they are off the top of my head. But first of all, you can think about which kind of people you'd like to work with most, ones that you maybe have the most experience of working with, or the most knowledge of, or that you think will be most satisfying and enjoyable. You can also think about which ones have the most money or the biggest budgets and will be the most profitable. You could also think about which market is the biggest, which group has the most people in it, which one's the most easy to access, which one has the biggest need for what you have to offer. So I think there's sort of different ways in which you can look at it. And then you can kind of use that to kind of score people and kind of go, okay, well, this group is number 1 priority because they've got loads of money. They're really nice people. I know how to get to them. I've got loads of experience working with them. And then there's this other group over here. They haven't got any money. I don't like them. And they can kind of be lower priority. And I think it's good when you're launching a business to not try and reach everyone. So yeah, have one clear group in mind, but also to have a couple of other groups that you're developing relationships with. And I think the last few months have proved why that's really important, not to put all your eggs in one basket. Like I had an example today. Somebody said they had a business working with photographers and they just lost all their business because all the photographers lost all their business. So yeah, I think kind of having a couple of different types of customer is always good to kind of spread your risk.
Yeah, I think that matrix that you were talking about is really a good idea. I was just thinking with e-learning, every type of industry you could work with, but knowing
that doesn't help me.
No, I know.
Everybody is my target audience.
Anwen had a very structured way of talking about it, but I think you should do what Anwen said and think about who you'd want to work with, who has the budget, who has the biggest need for that, and work backwards. Listen to Anwen.
From a web perspective, we saw an uptick in people inquiries around kind of e-learning and things like that. So you find it in the strangest places. It takes some kahunas, but you could pitch yourself to very large organizations that have the need for things like intranets and that sort of thing, because these are people, maybe large law firms and stuff like that. The e-learning platforms can be used to teach literally anything. So we've seen people using them as onboarding tools. Very good at kind of making sure that a process is how someone learns a process is delivered in exactly the same way. And so you might have something I don't know, you might have a fruit packing company of, picking and packing company
apples.
That needs to apples, that needs to deliver training in a particular way and make sure that the learning happens. You might have, I don't know, a large law firm or something like that is moving to they've, put everyone to work from home, or as many people as they can. And then they, now they need to hire people. So how do you onboard them at a distance and that sort of thing? So there's big companies will always, almost always find a compelling need for some piece of technology.
Yeah. The other thing I would
suggest, sorry. I was just going to say, with the larger companies, you have larger e-learning providers that offer off-the-shelf products. So I guess I'm trying to narrow down my audience so that I can work out where can I provide that niche, being a smaller firm that can be more adaptable and individual in my approach.
I think what I've learned from doing it is I've been doing Microsoft training for years, but I never pitch myself as a Microsoft trainer. There are too many competition. Yeah, I can do it, and I've been doing it for many years, but I aim for the much smaller tech companies who are just beginning to think about they want trainers or they want e-learning. And you go in and you pitch to them. And instead of either being full-time, you're freelance. And then you're the one or the two people in the world that are the trainer or the e-trainer for them. And then people call you. It's kind of a bit of luck, because either you go with a company that ends up being Betamax and they bomb, or you pick a good one and they grow and you're in there early and you have the historic knowledge of the product. But yeah, if you're individual and small on your own, you're just one of many in the big pond. Or you can go for a smaller pond and wait for the pond to grow.
Yeah, good thinking. The other thing I was going to suggest is I really like the book, The Lean Startup. I don't know if anyone knows that one, but the book that I actually prefer is not The Lean Startup itself, which is quite theoretical, I think, but another follow-on spin-off book, which is called Running Lean.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more practical. And in that book, they talk about, they kind of give you a guide for having a conversation with somebody to test your assumptions, kind of going back to what Dan said about, you can think that you know your ideal client, but until you actually start talking to them, you don't really know them. It kind of gives you a framework for having a conversation that can lead to pitching for work, but it basically means that you don't start off by trying to sell yourself and saying, oh, I've got this thing I can do for you, which can be a bit daunting when you're just starting out. And also you don't necessarily know exactly what it is that you should be selling. Or if they are the right fit for you. So it just kind of, it's a really good starting point to have a really easy conversation. It kind of plots it out, it's not a script as such, but it kind of gives you suggestions and a framework for having that conversation, and just having that kind of market research, understanding what their problems are and how you might be able to help them. And then you can go back to them later and say, okay, here's a thing for you. This is how I could help you. And that's when you sell.
And bring that kind of lean approach kind of back into the marketing space. Like Dan, you were talking about testing and iterating, and testing and iterating. And that's kind of like one of the cornerstones of lean. Like, I guess, how do you build up that kind of, that resilience to continually test? Especially when, putting things out into social media, there's always this kind of emotional attachment to it. We don't want to put out a video that we worked so hard on only to see it bomb. Like, how do you build up that kind of resilience to marketing, to your marketing ideas and activities?
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think, like you say, everyone's scared, including myself previously, to post something and no one like it or comment on it because you think it'll make you look stupid. But what I eventually realized, when I first started making videos and they were awful, and I was very nervous making them and they weren't very interesting to watch. I remember it was quite funny at the time. All of my mates made parody videos of me making videos. So they literally cut clips of me doing this business video. They did one with, what's that film where it's like, I will find you and I will kill you?
Taken.
Yeah, Taken. So they cut me and I was like, hi, I'm Dan from KBS Digital Marketing. And then it was like, I will find you and I will kill you. And he hung up. And they basically took the piss out of me, all my mates. And it made me feel rubbish. But at the time, I remember having this thing in my head, like, maybe I should stop doing this because I feel rubbish because they're taking the piss out of me. But then I was like, my pivotal moment was knowing, like, I want to grow a business more than I care about people taking the piss out of me. So I think the pivotal moment was thinking, like, how much do you want the thing you want, which is the reason for trying this stuff? If your goal is to make an e-learning business, but you're going to have to try and test different things. Some people may say that what you do is rubbish, or there may be, people taking the piss out of you like me. How much do you want that e-learning business to succeed? If you want that bad enough, you'll do whatever it takes. You will create stupid stuff that people laugh at until you get to a point where we just got to 2 years ago, where you're actually like, wow, we've actually got a proper business because we did all that stuff and we got past those things. So I think it's asking yourself the question, how much do you want it? If you want it bad enough, you'll just take on the people taking the piss and the stuff not working and the no comments and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think you need to sort of reframe failure. So if you perceive failure to be, you know, the content didn't generate any engagement or likes or return on investment, you know, you can kind of feel bad about that and beat yourself up about it, or you can just take it as a learning, reframe it as not a failure, it's just learning, so it's still a good thing, and you'll make it better next time. And also, if it's a failure because people aren't engaging, that just means no one's going to see it. So actually, it's not really a public failure. It just means you can move on and hide it. No one
internally.
Will know. No one
will. Yeah. I often sort of think and say that the worst thing isn't people hating it or going, this is stupid or whatever. It's no one. It's indifference. It's
no one
posting
cares.
something and just getting nothing. I think that is worse. Because at least if people go, this is stupid, I hate you, I will find you, I will kill you, then you know, you've got a reaction, you've got a response, you've engaged, not in the way you'd hoped.
And you've got friends dedicated enough to edit an actual video taking the piss out of you. That's something to hang your hat on.
I used to play the videos in a presentation I did. It was quite funny. At some point, I'll share them.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Tumbleweed.
Thank you so much, by the way, for all.
In which case, I mean, I can go on and keep on asking questions and talking, but I know Dan,
I've got another one.
Yeah, okay, we got one more. I was just going to say, Dan's probably got like 500 missed calls. Where are you? Where are you? But no, please.
It was a really short one. Do you have any? I've had employers ask me before when I try and like insert pop culture and like nostalgic references into content about like what about like, are we not going to get cease and desist about this? And like, have you ever like come up across that? Or is there certain ways of making sure that your content can reference material without necessarily infringing on any kind of copyright overlap in IP stuff?
Yeah. So there's certain rules around how much of, like, for example, the David Attenborough Netflix documentary where we were having clips of that. It is a bit of a grey area. If you use a small percentage of the content, you can class it as a parody, but I'd be very careful because the rules, we wouldn't be able to do that content now on Facebook because the rules have changed. But what you can do is be clever about it. So for example, we paid a David Attenborough impressionist to do the voiceover, so it sounds like it's David Attenborough, but it's not. So if you think kind of creatively, then you can tap into that in a creative way.
I think that's the old ask forgiveness, not permission, isn't it? and as well, like I like the stories where if you do it and then, you know, say if you rip off McDonald's, you've got some new type of burger and you're going after the McDonald's customer and you rip off McDonald's and then McDonald's give you a cease and desist. And then that becomes the new piece of marketing. Yeah, we're important enough. Even McDonald's wants to sue us.
Yeah, I think you can emulate stuff though. Like you said, there's a YouTuber I follow called Nico Omalama, and he made he opened a new restaurant called Not McDonald's, and all the branding and stuff looked like McDonald's, but he didn't like copy the branding, but it looked very similar. So like there's clever creative ways that you could, you know, if you were tapping into Game of Thrones, like we did actually, we didn't use clips from the Game of Thrones. We used footage that was already shot of a guy dressed up in armor with a sword that looked like it was from that, with music that sounded Games of Thrones-y, if that's a term, to make people, to imply something that because all the different visuals, the audio is all sounding like this thing, automatically your brain thinks, oh, that's Game of Thrones, when it isn't. it's just because we've brought these things together?
I think
It is like there is a grey area, but I suppose it's like you say, if you get sued by them, you can then tell people that I got sued by a very large, famous.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be careful.
I will also say, if it's learning, if it's private in a company behind a paid firewall, who's going to know? If you're doing it public on LinkedIn, you'll get caught. If it's with a company of 3,000 people and only 200 are ever going to watch it in the company.
Yeah, I find it could just be the managers that I've worked under previously are maybe a bit overly cautious, because these are the kind of things that I would say, and they're like, no, just make it more just grey and beige, and don't try and get too weird.
That's not your client.
Exactly.
People sometimes, I find that people sometimes as well forget that there's a difference, unless you're doing something that actually damages and affects someone's incomes, and now you can actually be directly sued. But using references to someone, the first step before actually being sued is the question, can you please stop doing that? And you go, oh, well, okay, I'll stop now. Brilliant. I had 500,000 views already. Tick, done. Just don't stop people from earning money, because then you directly get sued. Using someone's logo, then someone saying, hey, you didn't ask permission for doing that. Can you stop using it? And you go, okay, yes. That's it. End of conversation. I mean, people do that on websites as well, plagiarizing other people. It's just like, hey, you didn't have permission to use our picture. It's just like, okay, we'll remove it. And that's it.
You can also change your name to the brand, like Joe Lycett did. He changed his name to Hugo Boss from it, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Good stuff. Excellent. Again, thanks everyone for your questions. Thanks for your just kind of your candor and your experience, Dan, Anwen, Dan,
Danwen.
Anwen. I am going to bring up some slides. If I can remember how. Share screen. I tell you what, I wish, it's hard enough for anyone who's run a Zoom and is so very singular focused like I am, who's I can do this or I can do that. But if you ask me to do both of them, nothing happens. I still feel that Zoom should have some kind of VJ setup, so you can just fade in sound and stuff like that. And just oh, we'll see you after the break, and just slide control, and you get KDM. Anyway, back to the slides. Sorry, you get one of those every meetup. KDM survey. So Chantal from Maidstone, she's put together a generic survey for all attendees to fill out. I haven't filled it out yet, so I don't know what's in there, but I do endorse it. So I'm putting my name by it. So please go and fill it out. And what would actually be sensible is if I put this into the chat. Or Megan, could you put it in the chat, please? The link to the survey. But yeah, like I say, I endorse it. So it's probably a great survey. I didn't write it, so it will have sensible questions in there, so don't worry about that. And the Christmas special, we're doing a Christmas special. If the government allows us to have Christmas, we're gonna have a Christmas special. And if it doesn't have we're having a Christmas special anyway. And if Coca-Cola allows us to use the name Christmas and the color red, it's gonna happen. So we're all coming together to bring you a Christmas special Kent Digital Meetup. It's from 3 corners of the county. And we want to give something back, so we're going to be teaming up with a local charity. We know what the charity is, but you don't. And that's the survey link. Great. Survey link is in the chat. And we are going to have an interactive quiz, and it is a charity, so we will be asking for you to spare a little for those people that are going to be, just generally way more need than, frankly, most people that come to KDM. So, so yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an interactive quiz. It's going to be all three of us, Supersonic Playground, Clockwork Moggy. Yeah, there will be prizes. There will be prizes. But of course, points mean prizes and prizes mean points. So there will be points too. So depending on what floats your boat, prizes or points. I know some people like points. People, who cares about the prizes? I just want 100 points. Anyway, there's going to be both of them, and the best Christmas outfit. I'm really, really excited about this best Christmas outfit, because I have no Christmas outfit game, so I really want to see what anyone's going to bring. I'm just going to bring like Christmas pirate, because that's my jam. But
you can wear your mum's Christmas jumper like you did last year if you want to.
Yeah, I don't own any Christmas jumpers, and so last year, for our Christmas do, we had, was it the Christmas do? Well, it was something, and we basically mandated that everyone had to wear Christmas jumpers. And I didn't have one, so I had to wear my bums. And they had little bells on it. And so I was walking around the office like the whole day, just like jingling. I did sound like Santa. So yeah, go to the meetup page to register, just like you did today. And we'll see you all there. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice party, and like, yeah. But again, government, fingers crossed. Can we have Christmas this year? That is the last slide. No, it's not the last slide. This is the last slide. So we're continuing doing this sort of 3-host meetup. So there's 2 meetups every month. The next one is Maidstone, hosted by Supersonic Playground.
The slide's not changed, Aaron.
Has it not?
No.
It's changed on my screen. Upcoming meetups.
It has.
Oh,
yeah,
mine's
it's
really
for
slow.
me.
Okay. It's just coming down line by line. Who remembers that? When pictures used to load like that. It was amazing. So KDM Maidstone's the next one. 2nd of December. They're going to be talking about sales and social, and they're going to be announcing their speakers soon. And then we have the Christmas special where we all get dressed up. And then the one after that will be hosted by Clockwork Moggy on Wednesday, the 6th of January, 2021, from 6 to 8 p.m. Speakers and theme to be announced soon. So yeah, please register. If you've enjoyed it, spread the word, tell the people. Once again, thank you so much to Anwen Cooper and to Dan Knowlton. And I'm gonna stop sharing, and that was KDM. So well done, guys, we did it. I'm gonna stop recording.